All right, welcome back. Today, what we're gonna try to do is code using ChatGPT 5 because it was just released yesterday, I think, for me. And I've been using Claude so far, and so far Claude has been great. I've pretty much stopped using ChatGPT because it just hasn't been good, to be honest. Like, compared with Claude, it just hasn't been keeping up. So we're going to try GPT-5 today, see where it's at. First, we're going to have a look at where we are and what we need. So test this. Don't rematch user for 24 hours. Still doesn't work. Okay, so that needs to be tested. When unmatching, remove both the likes. So this is a good test. When unmatching two users, we need to remove both the likes. So we're going to start a connection here. Make sure that they match, which they now do. Now we can leave the conversation. And then we'll go to matches. And we will unmatch me. Okay. Then we'll go to the back end. We'll remove the call restriction, which has been added. And actually, we can just check the likes table. It seems like the like was actually removed, but we'll see. Okay, they don't end up in a call together, which I don't know why. So the match is actually still there. Okay. The match remains. It wasn't removed. Why not? Unmatched by, so it's removed because they were unmatched. Potential matches. Okay, well, let's actually remove this and just see what happens. Okay, now they're matched, but the like remains. For some reason, the like still remains. Which doesn't really make sense because it's not on the backend side, so why they show up with a like is beyond me. Okay, I'm not really sure why the like remains, but that is what we're going to try to fix. So let's try out ChatGPT 5 and see what it can do. So add files. We'll see if we can actually add these files. Hmm. Okay, so projects can't contain more than 20 files. Okay, actually... All right, let's see what he can do. I wasn't great at actually explaining this problem, and because I haven't put a lot of time into understanding it myself. But that's a good thing. I can always do better in my explanations to it, but I want to kind of test it to see how well will it do if I don't put that much effort into it. Because the ideal of obviously will be to get to a point where I don't have to put that much effort into the explanation of it, but it will actually kind of get it and understand it. That would be a dream world, wouldn't it? Okay, it didn't really do anything, but it might be because there isn't an issue with the front end or the client side. I'm going to test the call again just to see if it's a problem of them. No, that's not the problem. I thought the problem could be that the backend doesn't update as fast. We're going to print the like button. All right. Now I think we're going to be printing it if they are already liked. So okay, so now let's do it. Okay, now the like is gone on this one. That's strange. All I did was I added these two print statements. Isn't this always the case when it comes to programming? Like, I literally changed nothing except added print statements and then went back in a call, and all of a sudden the UI performs as expected. How does that make sense? It shouldn't. Oh. Actually, could it be that rerunning the app actually is what made it work? Could be that the cache cleared or something like that. Okay. So we're going to have to run it again, get them into a conversation, match them, and then unmatch them, get them back into a conversation again, and see what happens. Okay, now they're matched. Good. Leave. And we'll leave, and then we'll go to the match here. Scroll down, unmatch. Yes, unmatch me. And then go to calls, or actually call restrictions. Delete. Then we'll go to likes. That is gone as well. Matches. We'll delete the one that was created today. So we'll delete that one. Okay, and then we'll go in a call again. And hopefully now we should be printing here. Let's just do this so that we can see what's happening. Okay, now it's filled in. Okay, so that's good. It means that the print statements that I added did not fix anything. It was just other things. Okay, let's scroll and see if we can see the heyo print. Okay, so it didn't print, but it might be that we're not using this. I don't know if we are. But what we did figure out, and this was not by the help of ChatGPT that much, but what we did figure out now is that the like button thing is actually a client-side issue and not a back-end side issue. So we're going to just paste the code here. Here's the code. let's see what it did, and let's see if it actually worked. So we'll go to the top, delete, and then paste, save, and then we'll run the app again. Okay. Frustrating. This is the... What? This is a thing that typically doesn't happen with Claude compared to ChatGPT. ChatGPT tends to do this when it gives me a full file. There's always, almost invariably going to be errors when I run it. Errors exactly like this, where it's like, okay, these things don't exist, but ChatGPT added them for some reason. Claude just doesn't do that. And I feel like to some degree, ChatGPT has gotten worse, if that's possible. That's my personal experience, is that it's gotten a little bit worse with time. At this, like, I don't know, 5-6 months ago, maybe longer, I used it and I thought it was quite good, and it was doing difficult things too. Like, I was working with AWS, which I think should be way more difficult than Supabase. But then now it's just, it feels like I have almost no confidence in ChatGPT anymore. Whereas I used to have a lot of confidence in it, even though it did create a lot of issues here and there. It's just, it feels like I'm expecting it to not work. Whereas with Claude, I expect it to work. I'm sort of surprised with Claude if it doesn't work straight away. Whereas with ChatGPT, I'm surprised if it works, which is what I thought was going to be the case now with ChatGPT 5. I thought, like, hopefully now it's almost flawless. Must be a really hard problem to solve to make a coding bot that's perfect. And now I'm no longer confident that it will even maintain the look of the app anymore, because there was still an error. So let's do this. That error is just a typo I introduced. It should be blah, blah, blah. But I accidentally wrote remaining monthly minutes. Okay. Okay, let's try it. Now it works, and we'll run this again too. Okay, so now it'll be interesting to see, first of all, what it looks like, if it looks the same anymore. Hopefully it does. Hopefully ChatGPT didn't introduce anything else, which I'm very unconfident about right now, seeing as it introduced like 3 errors. But we're going to try a phone call. Okay. That does not look the same anymore. That's interesting. And fucking sucks. Why? Okay, let's just not do this. Like, how? Why, God, why? I was saying it before I ran it, where I was like, let's see what it did and if it introduced any new issues or changed the way that it looks. And then we just started it and it did change the way that it looks. I don't know why ChatGPT is so unreliable. Like compared to Claude like does exactly what I want every single time, it seems like. Claude's not perfect. I have no affiliation with Claude at all. I wish I did. If anyone on Claude is watching this, I would not at all be opposed to getting paid to use the tool. But it literally, like ChatGPT, fuck. I had high hopes for ChatGPT 5. I thought it would do well, but that it would do this poorly, I don't think I would have guessed in my wildest dreams, to be honest. So let's just go back to Claude, I guess. No point continuing with Mr. GPT. All right. Well, that was fun. Let's actually try this by copying what I wrote. And then sending it to Claude, and we'll see how Claude does with this. So make sure, but so let's send this message to Claude and hope that it can fix it. And I should say I have total confidence in Claude about this. All right. Seems pretty thorough to me. It changed 3 files: the like dislike manager, the call page, and the manage like and dislike buttons. So we're going to start by just copying it. And as always, just pasting it. What could go wrong? And then call page. Fuck. I haven't set it to be a code completionist. All right, that wasn't really Claude's fault, obviously. It was just I didn't set it to complete the stuff, and I couldn't be bothered to find the places to put the stuff that it wanted. But let's try this now. Okay, so what should happen now? We're going to have to go through the whole thing again, but we're going to start a connection. Actually, let's check the backend just to see that the call restriction. Yeah, there is a call restriction, so we'll delete that. We'll go here, start the connection. They get connected into a phone call. Like, wait for the match to happen, leave. Now we've left and we have a match. Let's go here and let's unmatch me. Then we'll go here. We'll go to the call restrictions again. Should be a new one here. Yep. Delete. And then we will also check the matches and we'll delete the match. Okay. Now start a connection. What should happen is what happens. The like button is no longer filled in. That is the power of Claude, in my opinion. I wrote the same thing to ChatGPT 5 and Claude, and ChatGPT 5 added like 5 new errors, which then took like 1 or 2 messages to fix. Once it was fixed, it actually changed the UI for me as well, which is really nice of it, but I didn't want that. So very annoying that it changes the UI without you asking, even though if you're specifically asking it to not change anything. And that's ChatGPT 5 for you. Whereas Claude basically just says like, okay, you want to change, you want that not to be colored in, I'll fix that. And then it does it and it works. Probably should stop paying for ChatGPT Pro. But I am using it to learn Spanish, which is also a life hack in my opinion. Maybe Claude would be just as good at that. I don't know, but I've already set everything up with ChatGPT, so I kind of like using it for that. And it's been really good at that. And it's good at other things, but not code for some reason. Okay, but that's good. We removed the likes. Don't match users with someone who disliked them. That's important. Add limitations so that you can only call a user once per day. Okay, so this is on the matches page. When you have a match like this, you're only supposed to be allowed to call them once every day. So we're going to have to add some sort of restriction to that. First of all, we need to match these 2 users so that we can debug this or work on it. Okay. Now let's make sure that we deal with the call restriction here. So we're going to have to open a new one, I think. Okay, here's what it did. So key changes, call restriction. Before allowing a call, the function checks if there's an active restriction between the 2 users. It requires the call restrictions table for any restriction where blah, blah, blah. And it checks in both directions. So it checks if user 1 to user 2 and user 2 to user 0 to ensure that the restriction works regardless of who initiates a call, which is really good. That's something that I was kind of wondering about. Maybe should we allow like each user to do 1 call per day? Like, this is hard to explain, but it's a dating app, and the idea is, could it be that I can call my match once, but they can also call me once? Or should it be that we can only call each other once? So whoever initiates it, we only have one call per day to be made between us. Like, that's a question I don't really know the answer to, but it's probably a half decent idea to have a restriction where they can only have one call per 2 users per day, if that makes sense. So like, whoever calls of the 2 of us, we only get one call that day. I think that's the better one. At least that's going to be what we use for the MVP. And the way that I chose was basically a coin toss, which was giving Claude the unintended ability to choose, which it did. User-friendly error response. If a restriction exists, blah, blah, blah. Restriction creation and update. This was the one that I was interested in. After successfully creating a call, it sets up the 24-hour restriction. So that means that once we have once we've been connected into a call, then we create the restriction. So it not only checks if there is a restriction, it also creates the restriction now, which is good. The restriction expires, blah, blah, blah. If a restriction already exists between the users, it updates the expiry time. Wait, what? Okay, so we're going to have to check this. And then what I want to do too is I want to add some sort of like countdown here, so that we can see like how long is it left until we can have a phone call again. Just so that like it will turn like red with a line through it or something, and then we'll get or it will be a progress bar or something underneath it that will kind of indicate when you can do the call again, if that makes sense. Like, it'll be grayed out, the symbol, and then a progress bar. Something just to indicate that you're not allowed to call them right now. You will be soon, but not right now. Okay, copy this. Go to the functions. Initiate call. Okay, now let's try to initiate a call, and we'll see what happens once we've had the call. Failed to start call. You can only call this user once every 24 hours. Okay, actually. So we need to handle that on the front end, but we also need to check the back end here. Call restrictions, because there is a call restriction that already exists, so we're going to have to delete that. And then we'll do the call. Null is not a subtype of string. Okay. Not really sure. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. All right, let's try it again. Okay. We have restrictions, so let's go to the restrictions and let's remove it. Now let's go back and do the call again. Okay, now it seems like it works. We can accept the call. And then we're in a phone call together. Perfect. Now we're going to end the call. And we're going to go here. We can see that we can still press the call button, but then we get the failed to start function. Okay. So let's copy that error. And now let's try to think of like, how do we actually handle the restriction on the front end side? So what's the UX going to be like for a user when they've had their one phone call for the day? Right now, the button here to press to call is still green. And if we press it, we just get this, which is not great user experience. It seems like you kind of broke the app, which you did in a way, but also not. So we need some way of making this look better. So what I think we should do is I can go into the design here. And we can see, okay, so here we have a design that looks pretty similar. So, okay, yeah, that's actually something that we want to have too. In your own phone, if you go there, I think you can see, can you see this? I don't know. I think you can see like outgoing versus incoming calls. And so that's something that we want to keep track of, I think. Just an icon that kind of shows this was me calling them and this was them calling me, because that would be kind of interesting. And then we can have a time tracker here to kind of track how long ago was it since we last spoke. And then we could also have the Snapchat thing of like streaks. So tracking how many days in a row have you been speaking and then showing that. But the thing that we were actually going to do, we need to come up with a way to show the user that that the other user is online, but you can't call them right now, and you have to wait for a certain amount of time. Now, the time is 20-ish hours, 24 hours-ish, but it depends on when you called them. If you call them at 6 p.m., you only have to wait until 12 a.m., I guess, or whatever it is. And at that time, you're then allowed to call them again. So the question is, should we have actually, let's do this. So let's try to copy the way that it looks. So this is sort of what the app looks like right now. And what we could have is we could have a counter like that, just 21 hours left or something, and it just counts down. Maybe you could have it be 21:03:29, and then it will like literally count down, and you can see it counting down. That might be a good thing because it's very clear, but then it kind of becomes very long. Like you sort of need it to be, I don't really know, but I think that in order for a user to understand it properly or quickly and easily, which is always the goal, you want them to be able to look at it straight away and understand, okay, this is a countdown. Because let's say, and that the only way to do that, I think, is by showing seconds, because the seconds will count down. So you'll be able to see, okay, it's counting down. Whereas if you go with minutes, then you will have to wait 60 seconds to understand whether it's counting up or counting down. And 60 seconds is a long time to be waiting on a single screen. So that means that anyone who decides to move away from that screen within those 60 seconds is not going to understand what it does unless they memorize what the time was the last time they looked at it. And then they'll understand. So it's not very intuitive. It's not very easy to understand, I don't think. What you could do is you could be like, okay, let's just put in seconds. Like how many seconds is this left until we can talk again? But that might not be very clear either, because you might be like, well, okay, I've never seen 24 hours in seconds before, so it's not an intuitive number to me. So I don't know. It's very hard to understand what it even means, all those numbers. So time like that is probably not a good idea. A better idea might be to do a progress bar of some kind. Okay, actually, let's do this. Okay, I'm not really sure what the color should be of this, because it's the typical, or a typical progress bar, I guess, would be something like that. And let's say that we do this and then fill. Something like that. So this could be a way to do it. Where maybe the color of this will also change, so that it will start out as gray, and then as the closer you get to it being full, the more green it will become. So let's say that then it's like going there, borders there. So something like that. I don't really like that. I don't think it's a good. What is a good way to indicate progress? Maybe countdowns. Okay, so what if we do, like, this is one option. Let's just leave that there. I don't think the green option is actually, or the color of green is an actual option. So let's actually just set it to be this. Add it, and then this might be an option. Another option could be to do something like this. Okay. Okay, this is not going to turn out very good, but it's not going to look great on here. But what you could do is you could do something like that. And that might actually make some sense. So you could have a timer that looks like this, or that maybe the other way around, where it's this is gray and the other one is white. But the idea is that the timer, it can kind of be like a circular progress indicator. And maybe underneath we can have like 21 hours or something. And that way the user will easily be able to tell that, okay, that's why I can't call them. It's a countdown. I think this is a universal type of symbol for a countdown. I don't know if it's great, to be honest, but maybe. And this will be interesting. This is actually a good test for Claude. Let's see if we try to describe this, however you would describe something like that, can it actually create it? That'll be interesting. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, so let's open a new Claude window. All right, this will be very interesting because now it basically created a custom like animation. And wait. Okay, so this sometimes happens, which is annoying. Call restriction button. It didn't update the matches page. It only just created the restriction button and then it created it again. But I don't know if it changed anything. But I'm realizing that I see an issue straight away, I think, which is here, the difference. Now is datetime.now, but that in Flutter will be my current date and time, which it really shouldn't be. It should be because let's say that we use the actual the date and time that Supabase uses on the back end, then it will compare it to my current time zone with a different time zone, which means that the time will be just way off. So we need to fix that somehow, but I think the way to do that is actually to track the time of the use. I don't know if we handle that on the front end side. Like, there's one solution to that, which is to track it on the back end and to basically add a variable, I guess, to or an attribute to our users in the back end and call that like time zone, and then we'll keep track of which time zone each user is in. Or the other way is to know that the time zone is always going to be something on the back end, and then on the front end, wherever we take time from the back end to do something here on the front end, we'll manipulate it on the front end side to handle all of that stuff, if that makes sense. I don't know what is simpler actually, because the idea is that let's say that the Supabase timestamp is 0 and the front end timestamp is 2. So the difference between them is 2. Then what you could do is you could say on the front end, every time that we take a time from the back end side, we just add 2 to that time, which is a pretty simple solution. It's just that we have to do that everywhere essentially in the code. The other option is to add an attribute to the user on the backend side to track, like, okay, this user has a 2 added to the time zone, so 2 hours or 2 difference. So anytime we set a time thing on the back end, we make sure to add 2 to it or whatever. Or maybe anytime we read it from the front end side, we add 2 to it. Subtract 2 from it. Actually subtract 2 from it or whatever. And I'm thinking about like what would be the best way to handle that, this we can ask ChatGPT 5. Okay, diff. Okay, so according to ChatGPT, the best way to do that is to track it on the back end and then deal with it there, which is usually the answer. Any sort of like logic stuff should typically be done on the back end side, I guess. But still. All right, let's see. So updated matches pages with call restriction. Okay, so let's try this and see what it will look like. All right, this will be very interesting to see what that looks like. Ah, it actually, I mean, this looks pretty good, I think. The only thing I might dislike slightly is the 12-hour, 32 minutes thing. I don't know if we need it. Does it make sense? Maybe. But what we do need to do is we need to make sure that the timestamps are set. Wait a second. I just realized 12 hours, 26 minutes. Okay, maybe not. I thought maybe it was actually calibrated properly, but maybe not. Okay, it seems like the standard approach is actually to convert times on the front end. Database, all timestamps stored in UTC. API backend always sends receive UTC timestamps. Front end converts UTC to local timestamp for display. Okay, so I think we need to store the time zone information. All right, let's see what this does. So we'll call the restriction, we'll delete that. And then we'll run the app again. See, no restriction, good. Do the phone call, accept, and then hang up. And then we'll see 19 hours and 9 minutes is the restriction now. And that is not, well, it's actually kind of correct. Let's try to add a new location. Spain. Go down. See if we can get to the coast. Actually, let's just do Marbella or something. Marbella. All right, set location, save. Postgres operation does not exist. Okay. All right, now it's updated. Now we'll go to matches and we'll actually do the same thing here. So we're going to run this again. Go to the restriction, delete it. Change so that they are in Marbella as well. And then do a call. And now 10 hours and 3 minutes, which should be correct. Yeah, that is correct. 10 hours and 3 minutes left. Perfect, that actually works. Should we have the time there? I don't really know, but we've managed to add the limitation. So we probably shouldn't have, I don't know if we should have the time there. It's kind of works. You can see how long it's left. And it's not the worst idea, I don't think. $10, 2 minutes. Well, either way, it was a good feature to have because now we've added so that we can't just call everyone all the time and use up all of my personal Agora minutes on the backend side. People can do one call per day. They have about 5 minutes, I think, still for the calls. Not really sure for these calls, actually. Yeah, I don't know. We need to make sure that that's actually there. Make sure matched users. Oh yeah, I think it does still work. Does it? Okay, I need to test this. So if I go here, it says that I have 37 minutes remaining. So we'll keep that in mind. Then we'll go to the restriction. We'll delete this. And we'll do a phone call with our match. Okay. So we had 37 minutes, I think, remaining. We need to add so that this actually also counts down so that we can see that we're using up our minutes. And I don't think we are seeing that. Or, I mean, I don't think we are counting down the minutes even on the backend side, even if it doesn't show up here. I don't think these phone calls count yet, which they need to do because people could very easily be racking up like hours of phone calls, especially the people that try to kind of break things. Because I believe most of you guys are nice, but there will be some that aren't. And they will probably have two devices and just start a phone call, just leave them there for hours and hours and hours, just to kind of break my app, if that makes sense. We're going to end the call, see how many minutes we have left. If we go into here, it actually does say 36 minutes. So it did change. Oh no, it doesn't actually. Fuck. This counts as minutes. This should not count as minutes. Or does it? Okay, it doesn't do that, but for some reason it went from 37 to 34. Not really sure. Okay, there's some sort of issue there. Okay, so the hours now is 11 hours and 57 minutes, which doesn't make sense again because it is 2 p.m. here. So it should say 9 hours and like 59 minutes. That's what it should say. But it says 10 or 11 hours and 57 minutes, which is a number that doesn't make any sense. Like, how did that happen? I don't know. $12:01. Okay. I think the timestamp maybe gets calculated based on I don't know. I actually don't know. But anyway, that's going to be it for this one. And I'll have to come back on Wednesday and try to fix this. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope I'll see you in the next one.